You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God.
I live stream on YouTube and on my Twitch about 4 days a week, so make sure you go and check that out. Also, I have more content on my Patreon.
Oh, good! You can grab onto them pointy rocks.
Oh, no! Them rocks focus onto legs!
Oh, good! Those helpful beavers are swimming out to save him.
Oh, no! They're biting them!
Today, I'm going to be watching Nerdrotic, Hollywood is Cooked.
It has been reported that Tinseltown has lost nearly a third of everyone working in the industry, which coincidentally matches the amount of ticket sales they've lost over the same amount of time. I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying 2025 has been one of the worst years for film in living memory, not counting the year Hollywood took off for COVID. And it'll probably go down as the year of the slopbuster. Case in point, at time of recording, the only billion-dollar film is Lilo and Stitch, and the only one that almost made $1 billion was Minecraft. Neither of which will go down in the annals of cinema history. It's no longer a question that this is the end of Hollywood as we know it. The only question left is, why is Hollywood dying?
Kind of wish I did a whole video just on Lilo and Stitch, but it looked like I missed the wave when everyone was talking about it. Just another Disney remake that's riding the back off of nostalgia. A lot of people who grew up to that movie are going to now take their nieces and nephews and kids to go watch the movie. So you're kind of playing on, I've heard this term before, weaponizing nostalgia, where you're hoping that a lot of these people who are making money now that really like that movie will then pay for it just because it's something that they already knew, something that they associate with already seeing. And this isn't really reforming new content, because you are taking a movie that was already a movie and turning it into a movie. You're taking something and turning it into a movie when it already was one. I get that it was animation, now it's live action, but the line between taking a book and making it a movie or a series is much further of visualizing. You're going to get a lot more content out of it than taking a movie that was animated to a movie that's live action. There's a much smaller gap to the difference of content.
No, what the only question left is, why is Hollywood dying? And the many answers to that one question could be filed under death by 1,000 paper cuts and one massive self-inflicted wound that's starting to fester, which is a shame considering Hollywood has survived a lot over the last century, including but not limited to world wars, pandemics, scandal, recessions, scandal, depressions, strikes, scandals, the Red Scare, where they went after some people who weren't communists and a lot of people who were, the Paramount antitrust case that ended the studio system, forcing the studios to sell the theaters that they owned. And it really was quite the monopoly, because the most movie tickets sold in American history were in 1946 with an estimate 4.067 billion tickets sold, when death stared them right in the face with television, VHS, and DVD. Tinseltown managed to not only adapt, but thrive. It was in the mid-'80s when Hollywood started making more money from home entertainment than in the theaters, and the profits grew by orders of magnitude, with DVD, where at its peak, that was 60% of Hollywood's revenue.
Gosh, I really didn't know where to stop, because he's just point after point. I also didn't really know about the monopoly or the concept of these own movies and studios that are creating this content are also the only ones who own the places where you can go and watch it. So that is interesting. I never really thought about anything like that. Kind of having a monopoly on, well, we're making this, but you can only watch it here. That's how they would get their money. Kind of makes sense, because if they made it and they're in charge of producing it, then you would own the theater. Yeah, but it's just interesting. So yeah, TV's being the biggest thing that looked as if it would have killed Hollywood, at least taken a lot of money out of their pockets, because now they don't really need to go and watch it in the place that you would make money off of. They can just watch it from the comfort of their home. But even that they overcame with making money off of DVDs or VHS, places where now you have to still go and purchase the content to watch it from the comfort of your home. Just clever ways to get around it. So I really liked what he said, which is death by 1,000 paper cuts. Really good analogy, because it's kind of just very slowly been movie after movie and move after money grab, after this scandal, after this one poor actress who said something that a lot of people didn't like, and just maneuvering constant things that they've done to themselves, which are comparable to paper cuts.
was in the mid-'80s when Hollywood started making more money from home entertainment than in the theaters, and the profits grew by orders of magnitude with DVD, where at its peak, that was 60% of Hollywood's revenue. And it was roughly around the DVD era where the runaway production problem in Hollywood started to escalate due to the increase in foreign tax incentives. Both became a thing in the 90s. Something else that was coming down the pike that was developed in that decade that would be the biggest revolution and disruption to Hollywood: the internet. And while Blu-ray was able to offset the sagging DVD sales, physical media peaked in 2007. Coincidentally, the same year Netflix launched its streaming service, and by the mid-2010s, that was the primary way people were consuming their media.
Oh yeah, remember Blockbuster? I thought it had this underdog story where they tried to pitch something to someone and they thought it was silly, but then they ended up being revolutionary, like super successful. Blockbuster was something that everybody would go to, maybe remember from their childhood, to pick out a movie on the weekend with their parents on their way home, and you would watch it with the family and even get snacks there. It was bringing the movie experience to your home. So very interesting to hear that Netflix kind of almost had their own story of pitching an idea to Blockbuster about how you don't even need to go to the store anymore. Skip renting out all of these big department-sized stores. You can just have them pay for it from the access of their home now. So they could maybe in a few years DoorDash some sweets. Just turn on their TV, have the entire experience. Don't even need to go and rent and return it anymore. Save the trouble. And they laughed at them. I think some of the even issues were, well, we make a lot of money off of those late return fees because people have to come up here for the inconvenience. And people like the experience of still going out and purchasing something and looking for snacks. And this is just such a laughable idea. It'll never work. And then Netflix had their own, we'll show you, and now there's like one Blockbuster left, right?
Again, coincidentally, with the widespread adoption of smartphones. This is also around the time cord cutting became a thing, costing Hollywood billions. And 2019 was the first year streaming revenue surpassed theatrical revenue to the tune of $48 billion to $42 billion. And in late 2019 and early 2020, one of the most amazing coincidences of all happened. 4 major streaming services were launched right before COVID: Apple TV, Disney Plus, Peacock, and HBO Max. During the government overreaction to a cold, Hollywood was considered by California to be essential. Unfortunately for them, the rest of the population wasn't, and they couldn't go see the movies. But thanks to that horrific government overreaction to a cold, streaming exploded. And shockingly, the bubble burst once people were allowed to go outside.
4 streaming services by major companies launched right before COVID? She's gonna become a conspiracy theorist. You could just say it was a coincidence, because clearly what Netflix did was huge and super profitable for them, so everybody else is going to try to get their hands on it, and the amount of time that it takes to maybe process or build or make something like that maybe just kind of took all of them the same amount of time because they were all rushing to do it. But convenient.
And shockingly, the bubble burst once people were allowed to go outside. And the only reason theaters didn't collapse is because they were subsidized by the American taxpayer. This was also around the time the Chinese box office started its very sharp decline. And Tinseltown found out once you break the habit of going to the movies, it's very difficult to get the audience back. So in their infinite wisdom, they decided to shut down their entire industry again. Just when things were starting to ramp up again with the worst time strikes in American industry history. And we're not done with that, but the one thing I have yet to mention is the decline in quality. And while that had been happening for a while due to the previously mentioned 1,000 paper cuts, things were made demonstrably worse in the years 2016 and 17 with the election of President Donald Trump, when Hollywood collectively lost its mind and chose a side against half of the American people and a movement called Me Too.
So unfortunate that all of this change kind of goes back to that movement, Me Too, because a lot of people who probably had really, not even probably, a lot of people who had real experiences and real stories and real things that they want to not happen anymore were kind of smushed in with a lot of people taking advantage of that and just kind of making it a much bigger thing than it was. I mean, putting everything else behind that movement that wasn't even about that movement, and just made it weird. And then everybody took advantage of it, and it seems like it was pushed in a way that was used against people that weren't even perpetrators. There's a really good amount of people kind of in the middle where they think on both sides. They can see both sides. I would even want to argue that's the majority. But it's a lot of the crazies or people who are very loud who take something and use it as like a weapon. And it's like, wait, that's not what that was actually supposed to be. So you're actually, ironically, making a lot of people hate that thing that you're using, which was kind of just it started off as something else. You're ironically ruining it. But if people don't like it, then they're evil. I don't know. It's just all weird and messy.
Oh yes, Hollywood was already in decline for a lot of the reasons I mentioned. I didn't get to them all. And yes, they've always been liberal. But overwhelming TDS combined with the fraud movement, Me Too, which had a lot to do with each other, was crossing the line of demarcation into an era that would become the most costly in the industry's history. With Me Too / Time's Up, it was a legitimate movement at first with Harvey Weinstein, a person that Hollywood celebrated, including Meryl Streep calling him a god, and pretty much everyone in town knowing what he was doing, finally coming to terms with the Hollywood casting couch. Mind you, this is the same industry that would give standing ovations to Roman Polanski and still work with Woody Allen. Now, shockingly, the Me Too Time's Up movement stopped with women and for some reason never really got into what happened to men or children. Combine all this with the entire industry thinking they need to rise up to fight a boogeyman and form a resistance, turning entertainment into a platform for propaganda, which infected every aspect of the business.
I feel like it is already everything that I just said. Hearing people speak about this girl boss era, it seems when people don't like something, there's a swing and a pushback. So people really didn't like the countless, maybe male roles and very clearly lack of woman roles. That's very fair to point out. That's fine. More men do that and more men have done it first. So there's nothing wrong with that. Those movies are amazing. Those movies aren't bad just because you think that there's a little bit of a lack in a certain area. Just look at the lack and then produce it. But it seems like a lot of those movies that were amazing were kind of villainized. Like, oh, well, it's just another man. What do you mean? That's amazing. Good for him. He's an awesome male character. Toxic masculinity because he saved the woman without her permission? You know, lots of women want to be saved. It doesn't make them weaker. Not everything's bad. Not everything's evil. Not everything has to be changed. You can just add to something and make it great. But it seems almost like the mean girl tactic, which is a stereotype in itself, because plenty of men do that, just do it in a different way, where you have to diminish something in order to build up whatever you're doing. That's not really necessary. And because you did that, there's now going to be a swing back where people are so desperate just to go back to classics because those were better movies, where anything with a female role is almost going to give a lot of people this idea that it's still being pushed with this agenda. Like, oh, that's still in the era where it probably has bad writing and they just put her there. You ironically, probably with this movement, made it harder to have genuine, really good female lead roles.
Age of masculinity was over and the time of the girl boss had begun. And beloved intellectual properties that had been working for decades were sacrificed on the altar of agenda. Things like Star Trek, Doctor Who, Marvel, Wheel of Time, The Witcher, Lord of the Rings, and The Terminator. And of course, Star Wars with the worst example of them all, The Acolyte, which was produced and written by Leslie Headland, the former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein. Traditional male brands that used to be for everyone turned into female brands for absolutely no one and filled to the brim with the message. And when the paying customers started speaking out against this, well, they became the problem. And this brings us to the grievous self-inflicted wound and the one thing most of the media will not discuss at all: making an enemy out of the audience. Turns out alienating half of your potential paying customers is not a good plan. Ricky Gervais tried to warn you 5 years ago.
If you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your god.
Bravo! Oh my gosh! I mean, oh my goodness, give him an award for just that. I think I even watched that video, reacted to it, I don't know where it is or if it exists, but completely forgot about how just good job. Yes. The being in no position to necessarily push an audience to make a political decision. That's what it is. You of course have a right as an individual person. You're not pushed out of this box. Stay in your lane. You can't have an opinion just like everybody else can. No, there's still people. They're going to have an opinion just like you do. But maybe voicing it and using this, hey, good job on this movie. You did the best. Here, come accept an award. And then taking advantage of the audience and everyone who's watching to push them in what you believe is a little, separate the two. Don't do that.
Thank your agent and your God.
A sentiment that was recently echoed by Billy Bob Thornton on Joe Rogan.
There's something about having heroes that are unattainable for you. That way they can stay in that magic spot. So I think we've lost magic and mystery and all these things. First of all, unless you have really studied stuff and really know about a subject fully, who the hell would want to listen to an actor or a musician talk about politics? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, are we supposed to follow this? I mean, if we are, what if they lead you down the wrong road? If you have $1 billion and you want to save the Badgers, f***ing save them. I mean, you got plenty of money to save the Badgers. Trust me, that's barely going to cut into your budget.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But sometimes miracles do happen now, about 9 years too late. But Jennifer Lawrence, you know, the first female action star.
I remember when I was doing Hunger Games, nobody had ever put a woman in the
love
lead of an
her.
action movie.
Yeah, that one. Well, it looks like J-Law might have finally figured it out.
In the first Trump administration, you had a lot to say. I'm curious how you feel about talking out now.
I don't really know if I should. I think the first Trump administration was so wild, and just how can we let this stand? I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But as we learned election after election, celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for. And so then what am I doing? I'm just sharing my opinion on something that's going to just add fuel to a fire that's ripping the country apart. I mean, we are so divided.
Oh, I like her, so I want to defend her. It's difficult to defend anybody who's a celebrity because I don't watch interviews and I don't keep up with what their political opinions are because it just doesn't interest me, and I don't really talk about that content, so I don't even know that she has ever said either of those things. You can be a fan of somebody without knowing their personal opinions on things. I'm a fan of her because I loved her in those movies. I think that she's was kind of the newer actress in my opinion, at a time. Maybe not considered a new actress anymore, but I really, really liked her. I still like her. I'm a fan of hers. I just think that she's a really good actress. But sometimes you say that you're a fan of somebody and it's become so normalized that if they have a certain political opinion and you say that you're a fan of them, then all of a sudden you agree with their opinions. It's like, wait, what? That's crazy. I mean, you can separate the art from the artist. Maybe sometimes it goes super far where, won't name any names, but it's like, wow, you have ruined the lives of multiple people, children even, probably. Not a fan, didn't know you in the first place. There's differences in that, but I want to say she probably didn't literally mean first female actress in an action movie. Maybe she didn't literally mean that.
Again, a bit late. Okay, a lot late, but I think we need to acknowledge and appreciate that we have a adult pretender who hasn't changed their political side, acknowledging their behavior and how it's affected not only her, the entire industry. An industry that's played its part in dividing the country. An industry that, quite frankly, doesn't have the luxury of losing any customers. An industry that needs about 1,000 more Billy Bob Thorntons and at least a few more Jennifer Lawrences in that moment. And I don't think anyone would say no to more Sydney Sweeneys.
Maybe specifically in this political climate, white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. That was kind of the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you were talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
And a lot less.
Good for her. I do not know that reporter, and I would not demonize her for being in the position that she's in. Feel like she's, based off of that clip, probably received a lot of hate and mocking. But in general, it comes off in a pretentious way to say, I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Wait. I would say most people probably know Sydney Sweeney's name versus the reporter, unfortunately, not trying to be rude. Don't know her name. So you're not really giving me an opportunity, because if I wanted to, I could have just posted it on Twitter and everybody would have seen it and talked about it, actually, if I wanted to. So, doesn't come off in the best way. But again, not demonizing the reporter. Could have even been told to her, hey, this is good, get this out of her, say this. She just has a job, but doesn't come off in the best way. Yes, good for Sydney Sweeney for just saying, I'm good.
And a lot less Mark Ruffalo's, Sean Penn's, Pedro Pascal's, and Stephen Colbert's, whose attitude towards you, the general audience, is to educate the low information pleb.
Why should shows like mine continue to exist? Oh, we're like your friend, who at the end of the day paid attention to the news more than you did. And you're aware of it, you just didn't do the detail work that we did. And then we curate that back to you at the end of the day. But it's really more about how we feel about it, or I as the person who is the vehicle for that.
What?
We're not telling people what to think. We're just trying to show them how.
And the reason Stephen Colbert is getting fired is not because a president doesn't like his views, it's the company he works for doesn't like his lack of viewers. And that's now a concern for his entire region. Tinseltown is way past the time of shut up and act, because outside of the culture war issues, Hollywood still has a whole set of new problems aside from the ones I have listed in this video coming up. In other words, they're cooked. I think it's a good time to talk about social media, whose rise in relevance coincided with the movie star becoming less relevant. The Writers Guild of America and Film Actors Guild strikes occurred in 2023, the very same year YouTube became the most watched television network.
YouTube? That's crazy. That's very interesting. It's also interesting because I could be wrong. I don't know who all's doing what and who led what movement or who went on what strike and pushed someone to say this on their talk show. It's very unorganized. I don't really have interest to sit there and unorganize it because I'm not a journalist, or I'm just reacting to it. So kind of more simple. But it seems a lot of the same people who wanted to ride on this women's, child, also men, it involved everyone, me too, but it seems like some of these same companies or places that care about supposedly, female actresses or the idea of a female character having a lead and having more of a spotlight. It's just a bit ironic that now that trend, it's not trendy anymore to do that. You're now realizing, oh wow, there's no money in this. People actually don't like this super push and this bad writing, political, whatever else thing that we're doing. We're gonna hop on AI because that's like the new trending thing. It's just a bit ironic because it kind of sends a message of, okay, you just kind of hopped on it for a trend then. Even more obviously, because the second you can replace a real actress, a real character, real writing jobs, whatever it is, and you hop on this fake, not a real person, AI actress who will stay young forever, who will just, there's no labor laws with her being an issue. Everyone's hopping on that boat.
2023, the very same year YouTube became the most watched television network. That was also the year the audience became the competition. And that so-called modern audience that Hollywood was willing to sacrifice so much for that never existed because there's only the audience. Turns out they lost a generation and they're about to lose another. But as far as Gen Z is concerned, whose average age is about 20 years old, only 13% say going to movie theaters is their preferred method of watching content. And that's not a surprise considering for a third to a quarter of their life, Hollywood's been shoveling shit at them. And it doesn't help that the gaming industry absolutely dwarfs the entertainment industry. The question now is, can this even be fixed? Anything is possible. If Tinseltown can somehow survive the AI revolution, massive layoffs, corporate mergers, creative bankruptcy, runaway production due to their unions, the policy of the city of Los Angeles and the policy of California, and rediscover innovation in technology without making things more expensive, and storytelling, in a corporate risk-averse environment, all while not annoying or pissing off half the country in a second Trump term. Sure, but considering they couldn't shut up about him when he wasn't president, this was the year they nominated a dude for Best Actress, and he almost won if it wasn't for some ex-Twitter posts, and Antifa the movie is probably going to sweep the Oscars. So I'm guessing no. Listen, there'll always be some form of scripted entertainment and movies in movie theaters. I don't necessarily think it's dead. It's just changing. To what? I have no idea. And I still believe authenticity is the currency of the future, at least until the robots come along and enslave us all.
Nerdrotic.com. Strong ending. Kind of almost feel bad for Gen Zers. I mean, if they don't really know what they're missing out on, then it's not really something to feel bad about. They have their own form of entertainment that the older generations didn't have, so it kind of just balances it out. Everything changes over time. You know, people used to form of entertainment with newspaper, and you know, it eventually just radio, TV, now streaming, all sorts of content on just the internet. Very funny way of wording it. Now the audience is their direct competition because anybody can just turn on a live stream or upload content that they want to a YouTube channel, and now people might choose to literally watch YouTube other than this new movie that came out that just doesn't even look like it's worth 2 hours. People will watch countless hours of YouTube channels or live streaming if you want to go check it out, rather than turn on a movie that they haven't actually seen before, just because it's not really worth it and doesn't really entice them. Yeah, interesting video. Make sure you check out Nerdrotic, because that's where the video comes from. Thought it was a very good video. Also, like and subscribe to mine, and let me know in the comments below what future content you would like to see. Yep, maybe movie reactions, shows. Won't be posted possibly as often, but if you would like to see anything, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.